Construction of the first Beit HaMikdash was completed by Shlomo HaMelech in the year 2935. After his death, a civil war broke out between the tribes. The country divided into two kingdoms. The kingdom of Yehudah, in which the tribes of Yehudah and Binyamin aligned themselves with Shlomo HaMelech's son Rechavam, retaining Yerushalayim as their capital. The remaining tribes seceded, setting up a temple in Beit El, and in a way developed a parallel religion to the one practiced in the southern kingdom. Following the death of Shlomo HaMelech, both kingdoms had a series of rulers. Some took control legally, others through assassination and intrigue. The kingdom of Yisrael, beginning with Yeravam, came to an end in the year 3205, when the last of the 10 tribes were conquered and resettled forcefully by the Assyrian armies. The kingdom of Yehudah came to an end with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash in the year 3338 at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, Melech Bavel, the Babylonians, the differential being 445 years. For much of the 270 years that the northern kingdom existed, most of the kings supported the worshipping of HaKadosh Baruch Hu along with the Canaanite deities of the day. This synthesis between monotheism and paganism was of course in violation of the laws of Avodah Zarah. The situation in the southern kingdom was better, but certainly far from perfect. Of the 20 kings, only 6 maintained a commitment to monotheism. And out of the 445 years of the first Beit HaMikdash period, for a collective amount of 158 years, in which the nation, and only 2 tribes at that, maintained a commitment to the exclusive worship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This brings into question the validity of Rashi's interpretation for the double Mishkan, in which he interprets the CHURBAN Beit HaMikdash as a return of the collateral to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Idolatry was brought into the land immediately following the death of Shlomo HaMelech in the northern kingdom, and for 2/3 of the 445 years in the kingdom of Yehudah. As such, this begs the question: if we assume that the Beit HaMikdash was collateral for the nation abiding by the covenantal agreement, why did it take so long for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to take back his collateral? Avodah Zarah did not come into the picture at the end of 445 years. It came in very early on. CHURBAN Beit HaMikdash should have taken place as soon as Avodah Zarah was introduced into Eretz Yisrael. Similarly, with the Beit HaMikdash number 2, while there was not rampant Avodah Zarah, things were not as they should have been. The same question can be asked, namely, if the Beit HaMikdash was collateral for abiding by the covenantal relationship, why was the second Beit HaMikdash allowed to remain in existence for the 420 years? And to answer this question, we invoke a little bit of historia, the philosophy of history. When the bank lends money and takes temporary ownership of the house, the collateral, until repayment of the loan, if the new owners cannot maintain payments for the house, the bank has the right to remove ownership from the new owners. The legal term is foreclosure. However, they are not obligated to do so, and it is at the bank's discretion to exercise their right whether or not to foreclose. Their rationale in not foreclosing is a hope that things will come good and they will eventually be in a position to pay off the loan. And this remez can be read into the situation with the CHURBAN Beit HaMikdash number 1. True, following the death of Shlomo HaMelech, both the north and the south broke the covenantal agreement, turned to Avodah Zarah, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu always entertained the hope that with time they would come good and renounce Avodah Zarah. In the glass half full situation, this did take place sporadically through the 445 years. There was Asa, Yehoshaphat, Chizkiyahu, Yoshiyahu, and Tzidkiyahu. Eventually, of course, things had to come to a head, hence the CHURBAN Beit HaMikdash number 1. And this concept is reflected with Rashi adding into his commentary the statement Al Avonoteim Shel Yisrael. The Rebbe's first explanation for this seemingly superfluous statement was that it comes to exclude the double Mishkan as referring to the Mishkan of Shiloh. In the second, it comes to emphasize that the destruction of the temple was not on account of God deciding that the product life cycle of the temple had ended, but merely took it back to be returned at some point in time in the future, when the nation recognizes the reasons for which it was destroyed and changes their ways. This, by the way, was the Purim saga, which, according to Jewish historia, led into the reinstatement of the Beit HaMikdash. authorized by Cyrus II, son of Esther. And the third extends the concept of collateral with respect to the CHURBAN of the two Batei HaMikdash, in that, just as in the case of the lending institution, their preference would be that the owner of the house ultimately pulls out of his or her difficulties, pays off the loan, and gains ownership of the collateral, so too with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the CHURBAN in of itself was not the first choice upon the nation's desire to renounce pure monotheism, that God allowed the nation time to recognize the error of their ways, and thereby hopefully averting the need to permanently deny the nation of the Mikdash and all that it represented.